Alrighty, let's go ahead and kick this off with part 3 then. We are taking off from Kahului Airport in Kahului. ICAO is Papa Hotel Oscar Golf. And we will be going to Daniel K. Inouye International Airport in Honolulu. ICAO for that is Papa Hotel November Lima. Let's go ahead and turn on our runway lights. Position lights is strobe and steady, and flight director's on. Let's get ourselves lined up with the runway real quick. I believe this is runway 22. Or just runway 2 actually. Runway 02. As our heading is actually currently 025. You can see the heat waves from our engines from back here. Got to hit our V1, start to rotate. Little kick on the rudder. Gear up. Positive rate. Flaps up. What's going on? Oh, there we go. Go ahead and set our cruising speed. We had previously had it set to our V2. See when we flip, here we go, start to make this left-hand turn. Set our vertical speed, turn on our autopilot. And we will be flying over these peaks here pretty soon. Looks so nice. So today, kind of wanted to go over the topic of the up-and-coming electric airplanes, actually, which is something that I've been really interested in lately. As throughout 2018, they've been working on releasing some of these smaller electric airplanes. So we do know that electric airplanes are actually possible. Currently, like I had mentioned already, it's really only smaller jets that are able to convert over to being fully electric, and that's huge thanks to the electric car market, which is up and growing at the moment. And so for right now, a big question that a lot of people might be asking is why current airplanes don't all switch to electric, and that's simply because of the density of energy that we are able to fit into a battery compared to the tank of jet fuel. So just to kind of briefly go over that, jet fuel is would be much lighter than the amount of batteries that would be required to power a jet for the same amount of time. It'd be much heavier, and that would just not be very viable. So that's why right now it's really only been integrated into the smaller jets, because that's how far we've been able to densify that energy storage. The energy density of the batteries has just been continuously smalling, especially with the growth of electric cars. So what's pretty much it all comes down to the energy density of the batteries. So once we're able to finally get the right amount of density, we will be able to replace all of our airplanes out there and eventually retire all fossil fuel airplanes, but that's going to take a very long time. But for now, some manufacturers of these jets are actually starting to integrate hybrid engines, which is pretty interesting. The hybrid engines aren't really going to become very huge, as these electric engines will eventually take over as we continue to make these batteries a lot more dense. And once we're able to do that, whoever has the right team to build those kinds of batteries is going to make a lot of money. They will make a lot of money, because after that, it really just comes down to being able to turn a fan, and then whatever air that fan sucks in, it then gets pressurized, and then that's how we create thrust, and right now these engines have like a recycled kind of way of running where it just all works together, but eventually it's just going to be all electric, and most of that engine space is just going to go down to the electric components. You're not going to have all your fossil fuel parts, which obviously do take up weight on an airplane. But then you're obviously going to be replacing fuel tanks within your wings, and your center fuel tanks and your reserve fuel tanks are all going to be replaced by batteries eventually, which is pretty cool to think about. The big difference between electric jets and fossil fuel burning engines is that as the engine flies, it gets getting lighter and lighter, because it has less and less fuel within its fuel tanks. But with an electric airplane, you've got your batteries on there the entire flight, so it's going to weigh the same the entire time. And I know that one of the electric airplanes that is for sure likely going to be going into production in the year of 2020 is going to be the Sunflyer 2. There will be a Sunflyer 2 and a Sunflyer 4, which will come out later on, which, the main difference between them is the Sunflyer 2 is a 2-seater, Sunflyer 4 is going to be a 4-seater. It's a Siemens motor, and the Sunflyer 2 has a 90 kilowatt electric motor with lithium-ion batteries, which have a flight time of about 3.5 hours. And the huge advantage over electric airplanes is that they don't lose energy at high altitudes, because airplanes need a lot of oxygen to be running, and a lot of these newer engines have been designed to fly at much higher altitudes and more efficiently, and that really doesn't become a problem when it comes to electric engines, because you don't need any form of intake for your engines anymore, because your engine doesn't need oxygen. It's all electric, which is going to be a very, very huge advantage of electric jets. For now, the Sunflyer 2 is really just set out to replace airplanes like the Cessna 172, which are mainly, you know, your general aviation airplanes, and your pretty much your training airplanes, which almost every pilot goes through to train. I mean, most pilots out there who try to obtain their pilot license, you know, do it through by flying a Cessna. And the main reason that this is going to start replacing those airplanes is simply maintenance costs. It's going to be a lot cheaper to maintain an electric jet, a lot less moving parts, a lot less components to it. So that's a huge plus for electric engines. And actually, when you compare them, the Sunflyer 2 to the Cessna, it's actually pretty remarkable as to, you know, as it's when it comes to its performance. It will have batteries in the front and in the back, and it's a lot more aerodynamic simply because it doesn't need those intakes in the front of the airplane like a Cessna normally would. So, you know, that's just going to give you a much more sleek look to the airplane and much better dynamics, which obviously makes it that much more fuel efficient. The Sunflyer 2 is able to carry about 440 pounds in passenger weight. The Sunflyer 4 has a 105 kilowatt electric engine compared to the 90 kilowatt engine in the Sunflyer 2, and that one's going to have 4-hour flight time compared to 3.5-hour flight time, and that's not including the reserves, which obviously, you know, instead of reserve fuel tanks, you have reserve batteries now. So when you're comparing a Cessna 172 to the Sunflyer 2, when it comes down to operation costs, the Cessna costs about $44 per flight hour, and the Sunflyer 2 is going to be only about $3 per flight hour, which is, you know, that's a clear sign that so many people are going to be switching over to these airplanes. People getting into aviation, you know, we actually do have a shortage of pilots, and this is a great solution for that shortage, because it's going to be much cheaper to obtain your pilot license now, because, you know, when you are trying to obtain your pilot license, they do integrate the cost of the operation costs, you know, by the hour. And, you know, you have to get, I don't even know how many thousands of hours of flying time. So they're predicting that the delivery for the Sunflyer 2 should be around mid-2020. It's hard to say that that's actually going to be realistic, simply because they plan on starting production in 2020 as well. I'm sure the first people who reserved their spot on getting one of these airplanes is already gonna, I'm sure will be receiving it in 2020, but if you're, you know, signed up a little late, I'm sure you'll probably be getting it a little bit later than 2020. And then soon after that, they'll start producing the Sunflyer 4, which I bet you anything, they're already allowing you to reserve spots for that as well. I believe the cost to reserve one of these was about $5,000 for the Sunflyer 2, just to reserve a spot to be able to buy one, to be able to purchase one of these airplanes. It does have just one propeller on the front, just like the Cessna 172 would have. Not sure the size difference between them or anything like that. Recharge time is at a 3C rating, which means that it takes about So about an hour of flight time means it's going to take you about 20 minutes to charge up. So, you know, so yeah, it'd be about 20 minutes to charge up an hour of flying time, which is not bad. If you have 3.5 hour flying time, that's about a little over an hour to charge up your plane to get 3.5 hours, which is it's pretty cool. You know, obviously that's not going to be the time of refueling a jet. That's the main thing about electric cars and just electric anything, is that it takes much longer to refuel than or to recharge than to simply refuel something. So as of right now, it is not certified for production. The FAA is still testing it. It is being done in Colorado. And that is also where the airplanes will be produced, is here in Colorado. So again, should be certified by 2020. You know, it's not easy to get an airplane certified by the FAA, so it definitely does take quite some time. I believe the FAA actually started looking at it in either 2017 or 2018, and you know that will obviously go on until 2020. The Sunflyer 2 did have its first flight back in 2018 around. It was I believe it was March of 2018, so about a year ago. But yeah, I've just been doing so much research on these airplanes. They are just insane, because you know the performance of, you know, a smaller jet like, or a smaller airplane like this, you know, surpasses quite a bit of performance milestones compared to, you know, what we're traditionally used to flying in the general aviation sector. So back to the cost for the Sunflyer compared to the Cessna. So obviously you have that difference of operating costs. $44 compared to $3 it's a big jump. That's a pretty big saving in operating costs. But when it comes to inspections, a Cessna costs about $22.40 for inspections, and you know, your Sunflyer 2 doesn't require much inspections, so it's only going to cost you about $2.40 for inspections. Battery reserves cost you about $8 in the Cessna. In the Sunflyer 2. Your Cessna does not have battery reserves, so those are not available. Oil change is going to cost you about $4.80 in a Cessna 172, but you know, obviously when you have an electric airplane, you do not need any oil changes, so saves you money there as well. And then for ignition and accessory maintenance, costs you about $7 to maintain that in a Cessna, and that is a non-existent cost when it comes to electric airplanes. So over time, these kinds of things are really going to catch up to the fossil fuel market, and you know, they're just not going to be very viable or cost efficient for anybody to use. So I hope that in my lifetime I will be able to see, you know, a full commercial jet being replaced by an all-electric engine, you know, and hopefully, you know, there will be some way that where we will be able to just integrate replacements for these airplanes. You know, I know that a lot of airlines do take in their airplanes to just strip down the entire interiors and replace everything and replace parts, and you know, I'm sure one day it will come to the point where you can simply replace all of your fossil fuel components of an airplane and simply put it out of service for a little bit, and then, you know, bring it back in service once it's been transformed to fully electric, which would save these companies so much money. If, you know, you could do that rather than building an entirely new airplane. You know, simply replace those parts that need to be replaced. And you know that, and it wouldn't be too different from a fossil fuel burning airplane, because these these airplanes, their parts are replaced all the time. You know that, and that's simply because of time. You know, there are some parts where it simply costs them more money to wait for a new part to, or for a specific part to be replaced or shipped in. So you know they'll end up, you know, replacing the entire engine, because it'd be much more cost efficient, because they'd lose much more money keeping that thing on the ground longer if they need to. So you know, simply looking at stuff like that, you know, kind of gives you an idea of how electric, um, fully electric engines will kind of be integrated uh, into our commercial jets. But I guess yeah, that's enough on the electric jets. We're gonna get ready to land here. We've already started our descent into Honolulu. You can see those peaks off on the right hand side of our jet here. So yeah, as of right now, we're going back to like the energy density in batteries. You know that as of right now, you know, it would be 40 times heavier than jet fuel to, you know, try and replace fuel with batteries. So you know that's really the biggest milestone, is simply getting the energy density of those batteries down, and from there, I don't want to, you know, oversimplify it, but it should be cake. Ooh, these buildings, we're getting close to them. It's quite a view. Cool tiny little island right next to this big island. Pretty fascinating. Got a fairly flat runway, at least that's what it looks like. This runway is actually a little ways away from the airport, so you know we are going to have quite a long taxi, but we are going to taxi to a hangar, simply because this 737-800, it is a Zibo mod, but the livery that I have is a private jet, so it would only be appropriate to put it into a hangar. I believe we will be passing by 747, if not a couple, on our way over to the hangar. But I'll make sure to kind of speed up the taxi here so that it doesn't take too, you know, take too long to taxi over to that hangar. But once we get this touchdown, that should be our final touchdown here in Hawaii. Maybe I'll have to do another flight from Honolulu to somewhere else. There are quite a few airports, but we'll maybe even challenge ourselves, try and land on some smaller airports here, smaller runways here. We are on runway 26 left, getting ready to land here. Autopilot off, auto throttle is off. We're off to the right just a little bit. We'll correct ourselves soon after. Alright, we have touchdown. And reverse thrusters coming up. Slow us down. Get ourselves more lined up with the runway here. put up our heads-up display, turn off our runway and landing lights, turn on our taxi lights. Let's go ahead and get our APU started. Wait for that red light. Oh, there it goes. Engine starters to continuous. Position lights down to steady. Let's go ahead and retract our flaps, and speed brakes can go down. Probe heat switches A and B can go off. Auto brakes turned off. And let's go ahead and start our taxi. Yeah, we're pretty far out from our hangar here, so we got quite a bit of ways to taxi. So for now, we'll just watch the replay from the outside. Like I mentioned last time, this is actually a livery based off of the real 737-600, so it would not have the winglets coming up like that, but you know, you would see a similar livery here, but just a little bit smaller of a jet. Tail number would be the same, November 37 November Yankee, just like in real life. It was a really big airplane in the 90s. Well, at least a very unique private jet. You know, nowadays that kind of color scheme just wouldn't be very great. You know, but in the 90s, you know, that was probably really, really cool. Now you start to see all these different stripes and different curves in their lines when it comes to, you know, painting their liveries, especially in private jets. Going right over the ocean here, there's actually get a little bit of a better view of our back tires touching the ground. See how good this landing was. Obviously not very well centered, but not too bad. Did correct that pretty soon after. Got our reverse thrusters on. Oh, and I can guarantee you that that green on this would just look completely different in person. I mean, I'm sure at night it's a pretty dark green, so it look almost black, but you know, in pretty good lighting, and if you're up close to it, I'm sure it's very clear that it's a very nice darker green with that golden stripe following along with it. There go our flaps and speed brakes. Get ourselves lined up with our taxi line here. We've got plenty of room on each side. I'd imagine you could probably land some 747s for sure on this runway, no doubt. Even an A380. You gotta love the A380. I mean, I've got huge respect for the jumbo jet, the 747-400, but you know, that was just a partial double decker. But you know, when you're talking about an A380, that is a full double decker. You know, gigajet, whatever you'd like to call it. Because I know a lot of people like to compare the 747 to the A380, but the truth is they are in their completely they're in completely different divisions of their own, really. Back there's gonna be where our hangar is off to the left. We're gonna taxi up to just to where this tower is off to our left, and then we're gonna make that right hand turn. I can already see the 747s sitting back there, parked at their jetways. There's that tower. I'm gonna go ahead and make this right hand turn, then cross this runway. Then there will be just a little bit more taxiing off to the hangar. It would be nice if you could actually start off in one of the hangars. There's a United Airlines 747-400, two of them. And then another tower kind of just sitting back there. This airport's actually pretty like well spread out. It's yeah, it's quite far apart. When I first attempted this taxi, I actually had to do a U-turn in this jet because I had gone the wrong way, and ultimately that was going to take much longer, and it wasn't going to allow me to cross from, because the runway we actually landed on is kind of on its own little island, so you have to take a specific taxiway in order to kind of cross this bridge, which brought us over here to the mainland. Obviously you can tell this airport isn't one of the newest, but it's definitely a big one. Got all your terminals. And there's our hangar. We're gonna go ahead and turn off to the right and then slowly park her inside the hangar. Kind of slowed her down a bit here so that we're not too harsh on this turn. Ooh, that was a pretty short flight, not too long. It's definitely ideal for a short flight if you're gonna, I mean, when you're hopping from island to island here in Hawaii. You know, you could take the two furthest airports and, you know, it's still not gonna be a crazy long flight. I am aware that, you know, in reality my wings would definitely hit the sides, but I was mainly trying to get my back wing here to line up with that gap that's meant for, you know, parking larger airplanes like this. At the top of the hangar you can see that white strip. Normally that would be gone, just so that you could fit larger airplanes. Obviously the doors would be opened up, your hangar doors would be opened up much more. Pretty well lined up. Looks pretty cool, bringing her into the hangar. Not sure if, you know, in real life well, no, I'm sure you could definitely park it in here without a tug, but it might depend on the airport or whatnot, that you might not be able to have your engines turned on inside the hangar, so you'd have to get that tow into the hangar. But other than that, here we are. Got it done. Let's go ahead and start our shutdown procedures here. Turn off our taxi lights. Let's get our APU generators connected. Turn our mixers down to cutoff, which is 1 and 2. You can see our engines then start to, slow down as they are no longer able to keep that idle speed. You'll kind of see those slowly slowing down. You can still see our those beacon lights going off. Our positional lights. That looks so cool, just sitting here in the hangar. And this does have the update. I just changed a little bit. This does have the Zibo update, so it's got the more realistic blades or whatever, which looks pretty cool when you're shutting them down or starting them up. Looks really good. You can kind of see them starting to slow down here. Got our ground power unit connected already, and our solid shocks are set. Slowly slowing down. Takes quite a bit of patience to watch those turn off. Definitely. There we are. That was our flight from Kahului Airport to Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. So from Kahului to Honolulu. Again, the ICO for Kahului is Papa Hotel Oscar Golf, and the ICAO for this airport in Honolulu is Papa Hotel November Lima. See you in the next one.